Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cox, I know that Facebook has said in the past that it's their position as a private company, you're not subject to the First Amendment. I assume that hasn't changed. Is that right?
That's correct, Senator.
But the United States government is subject to the First Amendment. I think we can probably all agree on. Hopefully we can. Hopefully that's still true in this country. Is it appropriate for Facebook to work with the United States government to avoid the First Amendment, help the U.S. government avoid the First Amendment?
Senator, we do think it is sometimes appropriate to be in contact with government and with government organizations.
To help them avoid the First Amendment?
Senator, I'm not sure what specifically you're referring to.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think it's appropriate to work with the United States government to target private individual speech that is constitutionally protected?
Senator, I'm not aware of that.
Well, let me educate you. On July 16th, 2021, an employee at Facebook wrote to the Department of Health and Human Services saying, and I quote, "I know our teams met today to better understand the scope of what the White House expects from us on misinformation going forward." On July 23rd, 2021, a Facebook employee thanked HHS, quote, "for taking the time to meet earlier today and wanted to make sure you saw the steps we just took this past week to adjust policies and what we are removing with respect to misinformation. This included," and I'm still quoting, "increasing the strength of our demotions for COVID and vaccine-related content." On April 7th, 2021, a Facebook employee thanked the CDC for responding to misinformation queries, and I quote, "We'll get moving now to be able to remove all but that one claim as soon as the announcement and authorization happens." On July 28th of this year, a Facebook employee reached out to CDC about, quote, "doing a monthly misinfo debunking meeting." The CD responded, "Yes, we would love to do that." Sure they would. On July 20th, 2021, Clark Humphrey at the White House, who's digital director of the COVID-19 response team, emailed Dave Sumner at your company, among others, asking any way we can get this pulled down and cited a specific Instagram account. Within 46 seconds, your company responded and said, "Yep, on it." That sounds like what in the law we call a pattern and practice of meeting, coordinating, and colluding with the United States government to target particular speech that no one in any of these emails alleges is incitement, which would not be constitutionally protected. No one in any of these emails alleges it directly encourages violence, which would not be constitutionally protected. So it appears to all be constitutionally protected speech on, I might add, very politically sensitive topics that Facebook is directly working with the U.S. government to target and remove. Is that your company policy to do this kind of thing?
Senator, we were quite public about our cooperation with health organizations during the unprecedented time of COVID. We knew that people expected and wanted accurate information on our platform. We had conversations with the CDC, with the World Health Organization, and with other public health organizations, not just in the U.S., but abroad, in order to understand how to help make sure that folks weren't getting information that could cause imminent harm.
Fair enough. So you're saying that this was, in fact, company policy to have these kinds of meetings with HHS, with the CDC, with the White House directly, that you did engage in this behavior, and you think that it was entirely fine. Is that your testimony?
Senator, I do believe it's appropriate for companies like ours to be in consultation with public health organizations and with government.
And you can confirm that things like taking down a private Instagram account and adjusting your policies at the behest of the White House and putting into place misinformation policies at the behest of CDC, that those things you think are appropriate. This was company policy to do so. Is that fair to say?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the Instagram account specifically that you're referencing, but we do know that people expected and hoped from the platforms that we would help them get accurate information about COVID during the unprecedented time, especially at the beginning.
Well, isn't there a difference between you as a platform putting forward information and censoring your users at the behest of the White House, the administration more broadly and the CDC? Isn't there a distinction there?
We specifically wanted to work with public health experts to understand the relationship between information and behavior. And so we did consult with the CDC, the World Health Organization, and others to understand how the platform policies we built were affecting public health.
Well, you didn't just consult with them to understand how they affected public health. You actually censored on their behalf. I mean, you took these emails. I'm just quoting from a sample of them, which, by the way, have been disclosed in litigation. These emails show that you took censorship steps. You took down accounts. You planned misinformation policies. You adjusted your policies at the behest of the United States government. I mean, that's not just some theoretical thing. That's actually targeting your users' speech. But I appreciate your forthrightness, by the way. But you're saying you think that's fine, and that was your policy.
Senator, we've been public about our policies on COVID misinformation specifically, as well as on misinformation generally.
And so you think you're not concerned about any of this? Nothing that I just read to you, you're not concerned about it at all?
Respectfully, Senator, I think the balance of how to protect free expression as well as public safety is a difficult issue. But it's one we're committed to working with outside experts and publishing our work.
Well, I appreciate you being so forthright. As I said, this is actually from litigation between the state of Missouri and the state of Louisiana and the federal government. I anticipate that your remarks under oath today are going to be very interesting and helpful to that litigation. I'll just say this. My view is that the United States government is bound by the First Amendment. They cannot encourage or coerce or incite or collude with a private party to get around the First Amendment, but you've just said to me today that that's basically what they did, that you coordinated with them repeatedly over a pattern of months and years to adjust and target your speech policies for protected speech at the behest of the United States government. I have to tell you, I've got a big problem with that, and I think all your users should too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. To our panelists, it's at 5 o'clock. I know there was a suggestion of a break, but we're right down to the end here. Rather than break and come back and keep you here longer, we're going to plow right through Senator Scott, and then I'll wrap it up after that. Senator Scott.
All right. Thank you, Chair Peters. Thank you each for being here. It's critical for employees and officers of the FBI and DOJ to continue to have a mechanism for reporting concerns of fraud, waste, and abuse within their respective agencies to Congress without fear of reprisal from DOJ FBI leadership. Whistleblowers from within the DOJ FBI have come forward with concerns about the Department of Justice alleged political bias following the FBI's raid on the former president's home in Florida last month. FBI agents have reported similar concerns to individual Senate offices as well. We all need to ensure safeguards are in place so AG Garland does not retaliate against or intimidate FBI agents and DOJ employees who come to Congress as whistleblowers. Mark Zuckerberg recently disclosed that Facebook's restriction of a story about Hunter Biden during the 2020 election was based on the FBI's, quote, misinformation warnings. Additionally, emails and internal communications obtained by the journalist Alex Berenson in his lawsuit against Twitter have shown his removal from the social media platform was a result of pressure from Biden White House officials to silence his criticism of the administration's COVID-19 policies. These instances and several others show a clear and alarming pattern of speech suppression carried out in the direction of agencies and officials in the federal government. In other words, the federal government used private businesses to violate the First Amendment rights of our citizens. This also confirms the federal government used officials at the FBI to interfere in the 2020 election by manipulating the normal flow of public discourse and information sharing with false warnings about foreign interference and disinformation. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, or a few questions you just show by hands, yes or no. By show of hands, how many of you and your companies have been contacted by a federal agency, an agency official, or a member of the Biden White House with a request to remove, censor, or restrict access to a post or individual user on your platform? If you have, would you raise your hand and say yes?
Not aware of it.
So Meta, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter all said never.
Not to my knowledge, Senator.
You would know, wouldn't you?
I haven't been in conversations with the FBI, Senator.
Okay, so no conversations. Okay, by a show of hands, how many of you and your companies have felt pressure to remove, censor, or restrict access to a post or individual user on your platform based on that contact with a federal agency or official? Is the answer to no from all four of you? So all four of you say no.
Not to my knowledge, Senator.
Okay. By a show of hands, how many of you and your companies have received a misinformation warning issued by the FBI? Everyone, you saying no?
Senator, we have, I know that we have received warnings from the FBI and other experts about electoral misinformation in general and foreign interference in general.
By a show of hands, how many, but the rest of you have said no.
Senator, we receive information from from every administration about things like foreign interference in election results, et cetera. But one thing's very clear: we enforce our guidelines based on our community guidelines. So we're the ones that are making decisions about the content that's removed based on the guidelines that we publish transparently, not based on what a particular administration asks us to do or not do.
So your answer is you have never received a misinformation warning issued by the FBI?
Senator, no, what I'm saying is that we do receive information from the FBI in terms of imminent threats, foreign actors trying to interfere with our free and fair elections here in the U.S., and we take that into account in terms of the enforcement of our policies, but those decisions about the enforcement of our policies are made solely based on our community guidelines that we publish on our website.
So, Mr. Cox, so what I said about Mark Zuckerberg disclosed the FBI's restriction of story about Hunter Biden during the 2020 election was based on the FBI's misinformation warning. Is that untrue?
Senator, I wasn't in conversations with the FBI, so I can't speak to exactly what the conversation was. What I do know is that we were in contact with a number of organizations who warned us in the time leading up to the 2020 elections to be on the lookout for foreign interference in elections, and that's an issue that we take incredibly seriously.
But you should know if Mark Zuckerberg, right? Wouldn't you know?
Sorry, Senator.
Wouldn't you know if Mark Zuckerberg was? He said that Facebook made that decision.